I never planned on running into her that often. Our apartments just happened to share the same hallway, and the coffee shop 2 blocks down had the best drip in the neighborhood. That's where it started. Not a meet cute, not even a conversation at first. Just her, always at the corner table near the window, reading with her glasses halfway down her nose. She'd glance up sometimes, like she was taking a break from the page. I caught her once, and it was the kind of eye contact that feels too long, too accidental to actually be accidental. I looked away first, fiddling with the cardboard sleeve on my cup until it tore in half. I'm not sure when she started remembering my order. One morning, I stepped up to the counter, still groggy, and the barista said, "Large black, no sugar, right?" She mentioned it. I turned to see her shrug, lips pulling into the smallest, driest smile. "Not hard to guess," she said. Her voice had this low, even tone, like she was always keeping her emotions under the surface. "Still, that's impressive," I answered. I wanted to say more, but words stacked up useless in my head. From then on, there was a rhythm. We didn't sit together, but our mornings overlapped. She'd nod, I'd nod. Sometimes she'd drop a small comment about the weather or the music playing in the shop. One day she laughed, quietly, almost to herself, when the barista spelled my name wrong again. I think I grinned too wide, because she glanced at me, shook her head, and went back to her book. It wasn't much, but it was something. And for me, something stood out against all the blank space. My phone was full of unsent texts to people I hadn't spoken to in months. My evenings stretched out, mostly lit by the blue glow of a laptop screen. I had habits that looked like routine, but felt more like placeholders. So yeah, I noticed her. I noticed the way she'd slide her glasses up when she was about to say something, like she needed that extra second of control. I noticed how she never finished her coffee, always leaving a half-inch cold at the bottom. The first real conversation happened by accident. I was walking out just as she was balancing a thermos and her keys in one hand, bag slipping off her shoulder. I offered to hold the door. "Thanks," she said, catching her breath. Then, without looking at me, "You're always here this early?" "Most days," I said. "You too." Her smile was almost sarcastic. Guess we're both creatures of habit. There was a pause. One of those small ones where you know you should walk away, but your feet stay planted. She shifted the thermos from one hand to the other, then nodded toward the street. "See you tomorrow," she said. Not a question, more like a fact. That night, back in my apartment, I kept replaying it. The ease in her voice. The way she didn't wait for my answer. I opened my messages, thumb hovering over a blank text window. Nothing came out. Instead, I noticed a notification. A number I didn't recognize had sent a short message. "You left your notebook at the shop." I picked it up. No name, just the words. But I knew. And somehow, I couldn't decide if my pulse quickened because I'd lost something, or because she was the one who found it. She returned the notebook the next morning, sliding it across my table without sitting down. "You should keep better track of your things," she said, eyes flicking toward the door like she had somewhere to be. "Yeah," I muttered, fingers brushing the cover. "Thanks for picking it up." She hesitated, then pulled out the chair opposite mine. Not smoothly. More like she was arguing with herself and lost. Her bag landed on the floor with a soft thud. "I skimmed a page," she admitted, folding her hands around her cup. "Not the words. Just, you write in small handwriting. Like you're trying to hide." I felt heat rise up my neck. Guess it's a habit. She gave this half smile, almost guilty, like she'd crossed into something private. Then she sipped her coffee, and for a while we just sat there with the scrape of chairs and hiss of the espresso machine filling the silence. Eventually she said, quieter, "I used to keep notebooks too. Lists mostly. What groceries to buy, what bills were overdue. After the divorce, I threw them all out." Her voice didn't break. She said it the way some people mention the weather. But the word stayed with me. Divorce. It tilted something between us. She wasn't just the woman by the window anymore. She had a past heavy enough to leak into the present. I wanted to ask questions, but they stuck in my throat. Instead, I picked at the cardboard sleeve of my cup until it shredded. Sorry, she said after a beat. That was heavier than I meant. No, I answered quickly. I don't mind. The truth was, I wanted to hear more. And that one scared me. That night, I thought about how easily people disappear into their routines. How I'd almost done the same, if not for her. I thought about the lines in her face, not deep but present, and how they made her look more certain than anyone my age. And then I thought about what people would say if they saw me looking at her like that, neighbor or not. The next time we crossed paths wasn't at the coffee shop, but in the laundry room of our building. She was pulling damp clothes from the washer, shaking out a sweater that clung stubbornly to itself. You don't use dryer sheets? I asked before I could stop myself. She glanced at me, mock offense in her eyes. You're critiquing my laundry now? I grinned. Just an observation. Something softened between us. We folded clothes side by side, the hum of the dryer filling the gaps. It wasn't much, but the simplicity of it, sharing a task, sharing silence, felt sharper than any long conversation I'd had all month. As she lifted her basket, our hands brushed on the edge of the machine. Barely a second, but my skin buzzed long after she'd gone upstairs. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. After the laundry room, things shifted. Not visibly, no one else would have noticed, but I carried that brush of her hand like it was something heavier. When we crossed paths in the hallway, her nod lasted a beat longer. At the cafe, she no longer sat near the window. She sat closer to where I did. And yet, she also pulled away. One morning, I walked in and she was already there. I started toward her table, but she looked up too quickly, like I'd startled her. Her hand went flat over her notebook, different one this time. Then she shook her head slightly. Running late today? I asked, halfway sitting. I should be going soon, she said, already closing her book. Meeting. The lie was obvious. No rush in her movements. No phone buzzing. Still, I let it go. She left without finishing her coffee. I sat with mine, untouched, wondering if I'd imagined everything. That evening, I passed her on the stairwell. She was carrying groceries, the paper bag threatening to split. Here, let me. It's fine. Too sharp. Then softer. Really, I've got it. I stepped back, watched her disappear into her apartment. The door clicked, too loud in the quiet hallway. For days, I tried not to care. I let messages pile up unanswered, let dishes sit in the sink. I told myself it was nothing, just coincidence, just neighborly. Then, a Thursday night, I heard a knock. Not frantic, just there. I opened the door to see her holding a thermos. I made too much tea, she said. Eyes down, not meeting mine. Thought you might want some. I stepped aside, but she didn't move. She held it out like a peace offering, and I took it, fingers brushing hers again. Thanks, I said. My voice felt smaller than usual. She nodded, turned to leave, then stopped. I shouldn't, she started, then pressed her lips together. Her hand lifted, almost as if to touch my arm, then fell back to her side. Never mind. I wanted to say something. Anything. But the words jammed in my throat. Silence filled the hall, heavier than before. Finally, she looked at me. Really looked. Eyes searching mine like she was weighing something. My pulse thudded. I shifted the thermos from one hand to the other just to keep from reaching for her. Her breath caught. I swear it did. Then a door creaked open down the hall. A neighbor stepped out, fumbling with his keys, humming off-key. She flinched back, almost imperceptibly. Good night, she said, quick, and vanished into her apartment before I could reply. I stood there holding the thermos, tea still hot, wondering how close we'd come to something we weren't supposed to cross. It was late, later than I usually stayed out. I'd run into her outside the building, both of us heading back from different directions. She carried a paper bag from the corner store. I had nothing but my hands shoved in my pockets. Walking back? She asked. Not really a question. Yeah, I said. You too. We fell in a step. Side by side, quiet. The night air was cool, the kind that sharpens every sound. Our shoes on the sidewalk, a dog barking somewhere blocks away. She shifted the bag against her hip. Funny. I've lived here years, but I never walk this way at night. Feels different, I said. Quieter. She glanced at me, then away. Dangerous, maybe. It wasn't fear in her tone. More like a warning, though I couldn't tell if it was about the street or about us. We reached a small park, empty except for a bench under the lamplight. She slowed. I followed. We sat. The bag crinkled as she set it down by her feet. For a long stretch, nothing. Just the sound of leaves shifting overhead. She rubbed her palms together, as if trying to warm them, though the night wasn't that cold. Then she spoke, soft but steady. You remind me of someone. Back when I was your age. He wanted things I couldn't give. I turned toward her, but she was staring at her hands. What happened? She let out a breath. I left. Easier to leave than explain. A pause. I'm not proud of that. Her honesty hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't dramatic, but it cracked something open between us. You don't seem like the type to run, I said quietly. Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, almost defensive. Then they softened. You don't know me. I wanted to argue. To say I'd noticed enough. The way she never finished her coffee, the way she lingered in silences, the way she carried herself like someone waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I just shrugged. Maybe not. She tilted her head back, looking at the lamplight through the branches. Her throat tightened visibly, like she was swallowing down words. I shouldn't be here with you, she said finally. Not harsh. Not final. Just fragile. Something in me cracked too. Then why are you? Her laugh was low, bitter. Because I can't seem to help it. We sat with that. The admission hanging between us like a held breath. I shifted closer just slightly. Our shoulders didn't touch, but the space narrowed to almost nothing. My hand itched against my thigh. Hers lay open on the bench, fingers twitching once, then still. She didn't move away. For the first time, I thought I might actually reach for her. But then she whispered, more to herself than to me. What happens if we don't stop? And I didn't have an answer. The night at the park replayed in my head for days. The way she whispered that question. What happens if we don't stop? Like it wasn't meant for me at all, but for some part of herself she'd been holding back for years. And then nothing. She wasn't at the cafe the next morning, or the morning after. A week slipped past with her absence, leaving a shape in the air, like a chair pulled suddenly from a table. I told myself it was nothing. People get busy. People change routines. But I still found myself glancing at the window seat, half expecting to see her book open, her coffee cooling untouched. Finally, I caught sight of her again. In the stairwell, arms full of grocery bags. She looked surprised to see me, like I'd come back from somewhere far away. Hey, I said too quickly. She shifted the bags, forcing a smile. Hi. That was it. No pause, no invitation, no small comment to fill the silence. Just the word, clipped. She slipped into her apartment before I could ask how she'd been. Later that night, as I took out the trash, I noticed another detail. A man's voice drifting faintly from behind her door. Not loud. Just there. I froze. I couldn't tell if it was a friend, an ex, someone visiting. I didn't want to imagine, but of course I did. The following days blurred. She was careful, too careful. If we passed each other, her eyes slid away before mine could catch them. No more long pauses, no half smiles, no offers of tea. The space she gave me was deliberate, and it stung more than I wanted to admit. One night, I sat at my desk, phone in hand. A blank message screen open with her number waiting. My thumbs hovered. Do you want to talk? I haven't seen you around. I missed delete. 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 Instead, I stared at the blinking cursor until the screen went dark. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. At the cafe, her seat stayed empty. I ordered my coffee, sat by the window, and tried not to look at the door every time it opened. Outside, people passed, busy with their lives. Inside, my cup cooled untouched. I thought about knocking on her door, just once, just to ask if she was okay. But I didn't. I walked past, slow enough to hear the faint creak of floorboards inside. Someone moving. Someone who wasn't me. And then I kept walking. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday night. I'd just gotten back from work, a takeout container cooling in my hand, when I saw her standing outside her apartment door. No groceries, no book, no bag. Just her, leaning slightly against the frame like she'd been waiting. "Hi," she said. The word came out thinner than usual, almost like she regretted using it. "Hey," I answered. My voice was steadier than I felt. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she crossed the hall. 2 steps. That was all. Close enough for me to notice the faint smell of tea clinging to her clothes. "I've been avoiding you," she said. Her eyes flicked up, then down again. "You noticed?" I nodded. "Yeah." She exhaled, rubbed her hands together. "It wasn't fair. She stopped, searching for the right word. I panicked. I swallowed. "Because of me?" "Because of me," she corrected gently. "Because I don't know what I'm doing anymore." The hallway hummed with silence. A refrigerator clicked on somewhere, the sound echoing through the thin walls. I shifted the takeout container from one hand to the other, just to do something. "I thought maybe you had someone else." Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in surprise. Then she shook her head. "No, just me. Just a mess I didn't want you pulled into." That landed heavier than I expected. I let it sit. She let it sit. "Finally," she said, "you're too young to waste your time on someone like me." It wasn't harsh. It was protective, almost kind, and it stung all the same. "Maybe I get to decide that," I said. Her laugh was quiet, brittle. "You sound so certain." "I'm not," I admitted. "But I know what it feels like when you're not around. And I don't want more of that." Her eyes closed briefly, as if bracing for something. When she opened them again, the guard was gone. "I don't know how to do this without hurting you," she whispered. "You already are," I said. Not accusing, just true. She blinked, and for the first time, she didn't look away. We stood like that, in a hallway too narrow for all the words we'd left unsaid. My hand twitched, wanting to reach for her, but I held still. Slowly, carefully, she lifted hers. Not to grab, not to claim, just to brush her fingers against the back of mine. It was nothing. It was everything. Her eyes softened. "Okay," she said quietly. And that was it. No promises. No dramatic declarations. Just the smallest thread of connection, held between us like it might snap if we breathed too hard. Time didn't rush forward after that night. It eased. A little slower, a little steadier. She didn't disappear anymore. She was at the cafe again, sometimes in her corner seat, sometimes across from me. Not every day, not like clockwork, but enough. Enough to feel like she wanted to be seen. We didn't talk about what had happened in the hallway. We didn't need to. It was there in the way she'd slide half of her muffin across the table, or how she'd glance at me over her glasses when the barista butchered my name again. Our routines bent toward each other. A walk after groceries. A cup of tea left at my door. A light bulb I replaced in her kitchen, her hand brushing mine as she steadied the chair I stood on. Small things. Everyday things. One Saturday, she asked if I wanted to sit at the park. Same bench. Same lamplight. The night was warmer now, leaves rustling overhead. "You still drink it black?" she asked, nodding toward my cup. "Still," I said. "You still don't finish yours." She smiled faintly. "Some things don't change." We sat in silence, the kind that didn't press anymore. Her hand rested near mine on the bench, not touching, but close enough to feel deliberate. I thought about that first morning, 8:47 a.m., torn cardboard sleeve, her dry smile. How something so small had turned into this. Not perfect, not dramatic. Just 2 people who chose to stay, even when it would have been easier to leave. She tilted her head, eyes catching mine. No words this time. Just a quiet understanding, one that didn't need explaining. And for the first time, I didn't wonder what would happen if we crossed the line. We already had, in ways no one else could see. Her voice broke the stillness, barely above a whisper. "Okay. Okay," I said. The simplest word. The truest one. And that was enough. "Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?"